Hey there, good evening. Welcome to Prog Monster. My name is Murph and I am the host of this show, a show dedicated to progressive rock, hard rock, heavy metal, and other forms of rock music. Tonight, it'll be a little bit of those other forms of rock music. This is kind of a country rock type band, live album. This is for my series, my favorite 1980 albums. This one is day 6. And we're going to be talking about the Eagles live. This album, if you've seen it, I don't own it. I don't own it. I looked for it. The guy who owns the store I go to doesn't have it, but I've asked him, and he says if he gets it, he'll let me know. I guess he could order it new, but new is going to be like $30-some. I don't want to do that, so I'm prepared to wait for it for a bit. Anyways, this album, a little story about the Eagles is that I bought the Long Run album. That was my first Eagle album. It was actually my first kind of experience with the Eagles at all, only to find out that it was their last album, that they broke up after that. Such a shame. This band could have been much bigger for me, but just because of that, I had to get into going back and listening to their older albums. And their older albums, well, not bad. Most of them are pretty good. They are they lean a lot more to the country western side, the albums prior to Hotel California, and even Hotel California a bit. The Long Run I like quite a bit. It's a little bit more of a rocker. It didn't get very good critical acclaim either, but I love it. It's my favorite Eagles album. It's not even close. Anyways, this album is a live album that came out in 1980. Basically, it was put together from concerts in, I think, Santa Monica and Long Beach, California. I think it was Long Beach. I did write it somewhere, but I don't know where I put it. Anyways, and it featured your Joe Walsh, Don Felder, Don Henley, Glenn Frey, and Timothy B. Smith. Those were the members of the band when they did it. Okay, but when this album was put together, it was put together with Glenn Frey on one coast, Don Henley on the other coast. So they weren't really together when they put this album together. It's pretty good, though. I've heard bits and pieces of it on the radio over time. Actually saw, and I don't remember where I saw this, but I saw a live screen of them doing this, and the one in Santa Monica anyways. But the Eagles are one of those bands that don't put their music on the internet. You gotta pay to buy their stuff. You can't download it and watch it. They're one of those bands that do that, so it's difficult to listen to stuff and find stuff from them. And I wasn't actually going to include this album as part of this series for that reason, but it's too good of an album to leave off. It's definitely one of the top, it definitely fits here in the top 31 albums of 1980. There's no disputing that, and because of that, I had to work and try to find this stuff and make a note of what was played and try to remember what I had heard and what I hadn't heard. Okay, so basically there's I think there's about 15 tracks here on this album, and of course they're all Eagle tracks except for one notable one, which was Life's Been Good, which is from Joe Walsh's solo career, and that was included here on it. So we have three album sides from the Santa Monica Long Beach concerts in 1980, and then you have one side, and not the entire side. I think 4 of the 5 songs. There's one song on that track that's also with the 1980 recorded parts, and so this side was recorded in 1976. So it's a live bit that's been included in this live set from 1980 that was recorded in 1976, and I can see why they did it. One's a bit of an instrumental, and then you have Mazner is doing his own vocals here on Take It Easy, which is, obviously he wasn't in the 1980 group, so he couldn't have done that. So they included that on there. And rightly so, it's a great song, and you want the guy who wrote it, or who sang it anyways, to be singing it. So you've got a pretty even mix here. You've got Henley doing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Pretty normal for your main singer. And then you've got, sorry, I think it's Fry. Yeah, it's Fry. Sorry. Wow, that's a terrible spelling. So it's Fry doing Heartache Tonight, New Kid in Town, and I think he does one other track. Yeah, Take It Easy. So yeah, pretty. And then Joe Walsh with a couple tracks, his own solo stuff, and then All Night Long. And then I think there's one track. Yeah, Mesner does one track, and then and Timothy B. Schmidt does one track. I can't tell you why. That's the song name. And then they do the Seven Bridges Road, which has like all of them singing on it. So it's a pretty spaced out, like, chopped out kind of song singing. So you got a little bit of everybody here. It's not just dominated by Don Henley or Glenn Fry. There's a mix of everybody here, which is good. I like that because the Eagles have some really good singers, and I like them all pretty much. My favorite songs from the Eagles are basically Hotel California. How could you not like that particular track? The Long Run, which is also on this album. Most of the stuff that I really like by the Eagles is on the Long Run album, so there's only that one track that falls here from that album that I really like a lot. Also, where is it? Yeah, of course, the solo bit by Joe Walsh. I really like that song quite a bit as well, even though it's not an Eagles song, and it's on this album though. So I'm gonna mention I like it, and there's a big guitar solo on that album which I really like as well. For the 76 part of it, kind of like I kind of like Desperado a bit, but I think Wasted Time is the one that I like the most from that particular group of 4 songs. Is that one, and Take It Easy, and Dueling Daltons, which is an instrumental, and then Desperado. So those 4 tracks come from that period of time, but the one I like the best is Wasted Time. Pretty good track. And then from the 4th side of the album, you've got Life in the Fast Lane. Always one of my favorite tracks. Love that song. It's probably my favorite pre-Hotel California song. Hotel California, and so for me, pretty much the Long Run is way up here, and then Hotel California for me is probably a high 2, maybe close to a 1. I guess the reason why it didn't make a master is because I didn't get it when it first came out. It's a little bit more country-ish, or have more of a country sound to it than the Long Run. The Long Run seems to have come right at the perfect time for me, so that's probably the difference between the two. As for the live stuff, like it spaced it out pretty good. Most of the songs here sound pretty, from the ones I've heard maybe 6 or 7 tracks off of this album. But most of them sound pretty close to what you get on the album, except for a few guitar solos here and there. But pretty solid album, I think, for a live album. So there you have it. So for me, Day 6 is another live album like yesterday's Eric Clapton. This is the Eagles, and this could have been higher in the placement. Maybe should have been higher in the placement, but I didn't feel that it warranted going that high because, to be honest with you, I haven't heard the whole album, and It's really not fair to give it a status that it may or may not earn based on what the other stuff sounds like. But the stuff I did hear, the 6 or 7 tracks I have heard, I like a lot. So it gets at least this placing in the 6th spot here. Probably could have been maybe mid-range for the month, but it's here now and definitely deserves to be mentioned. There was no way around that. I couldn't really just cut it out because it was hard to find stuff on it. So I basically had to put it in here based on memory. And you're gonna find for me, because it was in 1980, there was a lot of stuff that came out that year, and a lot of stuff had a huge impact that year. And then going forth, it slowly wore out over time, just from longevity, like 40 years. That's 42 years ago. So a lot of stuff just kind of fizzled out over time. And some of the stuff that was actually played then, I didn't get into too much later, and it's come on a bit. So there's kind of a combination of both of these things going on here. So you got some stuff that's come on in recent years, and some stuff that was big at that time, and I tried to weigh both against each other, because just because something's new and I'm listening to it a lot doesn't mean that it rates higher than this album or that album. And so the Eagles, because I haven't heard the entire album, I couldn't give it a higher placement than it was. So there you go. I think I've been as honest as I can be, and I hope you enjoyed this video and get a chance to hear this album or buy this album. It's well worth it if you like the Eagles. So please like, subscribe. It's much appreciated, and we'll be back tomorrow with yet another favorite album from 1980. Take care.